Hello, my good people. Welcome to Ticket Audiobooks. My name is Leon, and I'll be taking you through a very quick summary on the book Fathers of Nation. So, Fathers of Nation was written by Paul B Vitta and printed in 2013 by Oxford University Press, East Africa. The highlight of this book is a summit attended at the Gambia by African heads of state. Its subject is the awakening of Africans to come out from their status quo. So here's the synopsis of Fathers of Nation: theme, analysis, and characters. So Fathers of Nation setbook characters. Here are some of the main characters in the book. We have Karanja Kimani. Karanja Kimani is a Kenyan, 60 years old, is a professor at the Institute of Development Studies at the University of Nairobi. Then we have Comrade Ngobile Melusi. Ngobile is from Zimbabwe and is aged 70 years old. Pastor Chineke Chiamaka, he's a male Nigerian clergyman based in Lagos branch of the Church Inside Africa. Dr. Abiola Afoliba, he is a Nigerian academician and has an American wife. Engineer Saif Tahir, he is a Libyan formerly employed by Tripoli's Ministry of Defense. Now let's take a quick summary review on the book. Here's the summary. Fathers of Nation is a satirical novel, and it is set in a contemporary Africa. It is a story that brings to the readers all that has gone wrong in Africa, but in a humorous way. The continent is depicted as a valuable place that lacks sense of direction. The majority of the leaders have made their people voiceless, rendering them silent as their leaders continuously destroy their livelihoods. The plot revolves around the lives of 4 men from different parts of Africa. Amid their various misfortunes, the men get together to try and make a change. They want African heads of state to ratify a document that could transform the continent's economic fortunes. These 4 men have suffered under an unwieldy political system in their respective countries. Each bears a grudge against the system and has a reason for wanting it to change. They represent the values of humanity, empathy, and vulnerability. Professor Karanja Kimani has lost his wife to a former university colleague and now turned politician. His only daughter dies in a fatal accident in Nairobi. Pastor Chineke, on his part, is a fierce man. His insistence on government accountability earns him days in jail. He is also prohibited from preaching. Dr. Abiola Afolobi is ditched by his American wife. He advises African heads of state but detests offering theoretical solutions. The last character, Ngobile Melusi, is projected as a failed politician. He finds himself in the wrong side of the political divide after independence. He goes through the affiliation for being the Bele when the Shona president undertook to suppress his community. Then the analysis of the themes in Fathers of Nation. Here are some of the themes that come across. The symbolism in this book is enough to make you sit back and marvel on how Africans have accepted their status quo. It's an enjoyable read, and above it all, speaks to the frustration we still experience in Africa under corrupt leadership. So here are some of the main themes that show out at the book as you read along. So we have leadership crisis, we have poverty, we have corruption, we have betrayal, and much more. Let's look at leadership crisis. Poor leadership is one of the main themes in the novel. African leaders are portrayed as people who cannot give a sense of direction to their countries. Instead, they are shown as flawless human beings who cannot rise to the challenges of their times. They are people experimenting with various ideological positions originating from different places. In this book, 2 groups develop 2 development agendas referred to as Path Alpha and Way Omega. The book goes ahead to portray how dysfunction most African countries are. They are readily buying anything from anywhere. Unfortunately, in their hopelessness, the citizens continue to entertain a leadership that is blind to their plights. Then poverty. The novel also paints a devastating picture of people on a knife's edge of daily survival. International imperialistic networks of control have captured and imprisoned the continent. African countries are sucked into meaningless loans with international financial institutions. These development loans, through luring, have unrealistic demands. As a result, the continent continues to sink into a base of poverty. I mean, if you're living in the African continent setup, of course, you are familiar with this and the fact that most of our leaders keep on dragging us into more and more debt. So let's look at corruption. Paul B Vitta also shares that corruption is an endemic in Africa. The vice has devastating effect in the continent's economies. It is also affecting the cohesion of communities and social constructs, which are vital pillars of building nations. Wars and organized crimes and criminal networks distract the development of some countries. The network control all the political powers and economic opportunities. Come on, corruption. This is not a new term in our mouths or a new word that we're hearing for the first time. Corruption, corruption, corruption. Corruption is real, corruption is there, and it will take people with strong heart to end corruption. Literally, it's almost everywhere, in the family, at school, at your workplace. Corruption is there. Come on. Don't give it a blind eye. Betrayal. The image readers also get on African leaders is that of a coalition of confused and manipulated people. They have suppressed the voices of the civilians who are mere spectators as leaders destroy their source of livelihood. The book is a bold portrayal of post-colonial African countries. It is a continent where the most learners are impoverished because society doesn't value knowledge. Instead, it cherishes ignorance. Okay, those are just few of the themes, but there's so many. To watch or to listen to the various other many themes that come out in the books, be sure to check out the other videos down in the description. Okay, about Paul B Vitta. Who is Paul B Vitta? He is the author of Fathers of Nation. Vitta was born in Tanzania and received his PhD in physics from Emory University of Dar es Salaam.
Thanks for listening this piece from Ticket Audiobooks. Be sure to listen to other audiobooks in the list. Subscribe, push the notification bell, and don't forget to share with your friends and family.